Hey, hello there. Welcome to Floyd Center for the Arts. My name is Becky Latuca and I'm the Executive Director here at the Center. I'm standing in the Center's Hayloft Gallery today to introduce you to our 2021 Distinguished Artist of the Year and Guest Curator, Gibby Waitzkin. Gibby is an internationally acclaimed paper artist living and working here in Floyd, Virginia. So lucky us, we have her right in our own backyard practically. We're so grateful for that. In just a minute, Gibby's going to take over and tell you a little bit about each of the artists she's included in this show, about their work and about her work as well. Before she does, there are just a couple of observations I'd like to make about the exhibition. The first one is certainly one common thread I see as I look around this room, and you'll see it yourself when you walk in. There is the common thread of a true awareness and respect for our shared environment, and it's one that really resonates with me and probably with many of you. And the other one is there's a real level of maturity to this display. So each of these artists on their own have certainly worked many, many years refining their craft, and collectively I think they have decades and decades of experience, and it shows. This is just an amazing collection of work, and we are so grateful for each of the artists for sharing it with us, and of course to Gibby for putting it all together. So without further ado, here is Gibby, and enjoy. Thank you.
I want to welcome all of you to my show that I curated, Paper, the Enduring Medium. I have 5 artists working with me, which I will do a little tour and show you. I want to show you the beginning of this. As I was thinking about creating a show about paper, I also have been working for the last several years about the journey people are taking, in particular the journey we've all been taking this last year or so with COVID. And I was thinking about the journey people are taking, trying to come to America, and about how hard it's been, and our history. And one of the most enduring papers are documents. And I created this piece, The Boats of Many Colors. This piece has this is all made with handmade paper. There is a wooden structure underneath it, but the volume of this coming out is all built up with handmade paper. A lot of the indigo dyed pieces here are everything from banana stalk to kozo to flax. The boats are made out of all kinds of fibers. This is a sun hemp that someone brought with birch bark. This is a walnut dyed kozo here. This is an Osage dyed banana. This boat is made out of lily leaves. So everything here is made out of plant fibers. And the documents that these boats are holding, this is the Declaration of Independence, this is the Constitution, this is the Amendment to End Slavery, this is the Civil Rights Amendment, up there is the voting rights. This pretty little boat here is the women's right to vote, the 19th Amendment. This coming over here is the Muslim ban and bringing the Quran. This has the Gutenberg Bible here, and then the different religious documents from the Hindu, the Buddhist, and the first book that we know of, that's 3,000 years old, from China, the Book of Documents, was made out of bamboo, which I also grow here in Floyd. So I tried to include, I have a list of all of those fibers are in this piece. Over here, you see Nature's Offering. This is one of the artists, Nicole Uzel, who is from North Carolina. She teaches, she has her MFA. And if you look at the stem, this is an olive branch. The stem is made out of a hose. She takes a lot of recycled materials. The paper used is flax and abaca. Abaca is in the banana family. And there are 19 leaves that represent the COVID-19, and the 3 olives are representing Black Lives Matter. An incredible piece. It just moves. I love it. And everyone that's seen it loves it. So now I'm going to take you into the gallery. Welcome to the Hayloft Gallery and here at the Floyd Center for the Arts. A beautiful space. I must admit, after get everything lit, I was tears in my eyes. I'm going to walk through and just describe some of the artists and their work here. Not everything. If anybody ever has any questions, make sure you email me or ask the center and I'll get an answer for you. The first artist is Georgia Diehl's work here. And Georgia is from the DC area, worked at the Corcoran for years. She's now in Asheville, North Carolina. Her work here is all on handmade paper. You can see the beautiful decal edge. She does a technique of layering of pulp painting, pulp stenciling, where she literally can go through a stencil and do a pulp painting. Then she does layers of wax. If you look at each of these, there's a layering of the colors and tones throughout it. This series started as her response to 9/11 and basically has continued for 20 years. Alert, marked, you see the marked bullseye, the deer, evade, the loudspeaker, the little figure here, the hidden figure, beautiful pieces. Further down the gallery we have Home, which is a pulp painting that she does on one, she does her pulp painting, the baskets, the forms, the bowls, and then she's able to transfer it onto a wet sheet of handmade paper. So that's how it's done. And then she can go back in and add little details. It's an extraordinary process. I'm happy to say she did a workshop and taught me how to do it, and I use it all the time in my work. She's an incredible teacher. Then there's some more pieces down there that are handmade paper again with pulp painting, and then she did silk screening. One of the things that you're going to see in the show is the range of what artists are able to do with paper as a medium. I mean, that was one of the things that I really love, besides the fact, just kind of backing up a little bit. All of us have in common is that we're all women. We all know each other. Everybody's come to Sarvisbury, my studio, worked in my studio. Some of the paper that Georgia did, that Shar did, and that Brian did was made at Sarvisbury. We also, as women, have a history of learning to weave, and there's a lot of weaving in the work, but also symbolically, you know, with wire and handmade paper, dipping it into a weaving. My work has a lot of different fibers weaving together, but the symbolism of coming together. We all have an affinity for nature, and in particular our world and its well-being. And every one of these pieces has a little hint towards what's going on in the struggle with climate change. I wanted to share these two pieces of mine. I made this piece from bark from some branches that had been destroyed in an ice storm. My parents, this is all the birch tree, and the birch means rebirth. And I added on the other side, there's a wood structure around this, I added this image of these monarchs. We're so lucky, their return trip to Mexico, their last stop is right here in Floyd County. And we were waiting and waiting with the chrysalis. I grow the milkweed all in my garden, I let it go. And then suddenly there were like 30 monarchs, all on our asters. So I wanted to honor them. And then after my parents left and moved out of their house, the tree had to be cut. The tree had to be cut down. And actually it was 4 trees. It's interesting, there are 4 children. And it was sitting there and they wanted to move it for mowing. And so I cut the bottom of it, and for 10 years it's been out on the patio of my studio, And finally, this year for the show, I decided, well, I'm going to try to do, I had this idea that the monarch would be inside of here. So I dug it all out, and then I scraped it so that all you have is that outer bark of the birch. Well, I didn't quite realize I was going to happen. The whole thing collapsed, it fell apart, and it took me about a week or so to figure out how to put it back together again. But the way this is standing, inside here, this is 2 layers of handmade paper. And I put them together, and once I applied them, I mean, these pieces just kind of stood up. You forget about the strength of paper. Paper is very strong, especially plant fibers. So I have a little sneak over here, which you can see later. It's the monarch butterfly just coming out of its chrysalis. And then over here is a boat, the journey, with another symbol of rebirth, which is the snakeskin. And the snakeskin means rebirth. And so I use the snakeskin a lot in my work. It embeds incredibly well with my handmade paper. So enjoy this one. So now I'd like to introduce you to another one of our artists here, Holsen Beck's work. You know, she describes herself that she makes things out of stuff. And when you go to her house and her little studio house, space in the back, there's a lot of stuff and objects, and she collects things. But a lot of her work is really about using found objects. And she incorporates handmade paper, but then she incorporates all these different objects from nature as well. A lot of the pieces, come from wire that she shapes all of her animal forms. And all of these animals are part of being endangered by climate change. I mean, that's a big issue. That's where she and I really relate. And so she'll do these wire forms and dip them in the pulp. It's fantastic to watch. Later on, you'll see the indigo herrings that she does. And she keeps dipping them and painting with the pulp. It's just gorgeous. These are 2 little owls. We have a sparrow and a janko. The janko is primarily, after the handmade paper, she's used India ink. This one has walnut dye, a natural dye, and India ink on that. Back there you see the herons all with the indigo dye, which is really one of my favorite. I think as a paper maker, you'll find every paper maker has worked with indigo dyeing. It's the most satisfying, that and walnut dyeing. So we're back with Nicole Uzel's work. This is probably the most fun, a little touch of humor. These are called uninvited guests. And her ants are famous. They've been installed at galleries, but they've also been in hotel rooms. People love them. And she, when she was working on her master's, you had to have a mentor with the program in Philadelphia, the museum. And Brian Holsen was her mentor. So she learned a lot about making the work with iron, pieces of iron and wire. And these again are dipped. This is abaca dipped, and then it's all applied with India ink. And you can put these in any arrangement. Always for a curator, I mean, that corner, what do you do in the corner? And we were able to incorporate it next to our storage closet and create this amazing space. The first thing when somebody walks in this room, they comment about the ants. It's a very engaging piece of work. So we have many ants in this piece here. This is our other piece. Again, this is all made, and I'll move it just a little bit. It moves, and symbolizing the moss from the tree moss, called tree moss. And this is all formed with wire. And again, all of this that you're looking at, all this tone, this is dyed pulp that she's dipped into the wire and just done layers and layers of it on top of it. It's such an elegant, simple piece. It attaches like with 6, 7 pieces hanging from what is, again, you look at that branch and you go, wait, that's not a branch. It's just, if you look at how she made it and took all these elements, put there, the light is perfect right there with the branch and the pieces of wire all twisting and building up with the paper. I want to welcome you to my installation here called the Rainbow Butterfly Effect. And it's 9 forms here. They're all taken from the shape of the milkweed pod. And again, I go back to the milkweed pod with a lot of my work because that is the fundamental piece of nature that the monarch so depends on. And as we are spraying fields and besides roads and cutting down the milkweed, you know, then their habitat is lost. And their place where they land and lay their eggs and do their chrysalis is right here in Floyd County. So over the years, I've really tried to talk about it. I know they're really cutting down, and I'm really proud that that's happening. These 2 pieces in particular have over 67 color combinations and fibers. And the reason I was able to get that, every plant fiber dyes a different tone. So if you're dyeing thistle or milkweed or hemp, it's going to dye differently than banana or iris. And so when you do a vat with indigo or cochineal or madder, if you have 5 different fibers, you're going to get 5 different colors. So I have this incredible resource, a library of hundreds of colors to work with. And the weaving that I've been doing the last couple years symbolize, I feel like, that we all need to be coming together and finding out what we have in common, and not what we have being different, because we're all different. So these are the Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. This group of work down here is part of my installation, the Truth Continuum. I've been working on this out of my work, the Continuum of Being. And this is when I really started doing a lot of the weavings that you're seeing. I'm standing in front of one that I think really kind of symbolizes it. It has elements that all the other pieces have. Has the weaving here. If you look closely, this is walnut dyed, iris and banana, but also there is birch bark embedded in these strips. So the ones going this way have the birch bark, the ones going down do not. Hidden behind here is an eco print of maple leaves. And I use a lot of these leaves they're called eco prints, and you put a mordant, example of mortise vinegar, and you put it in a steam bath, press it, leave it wet for several days, and literally the dye from the leaves transfers permanently to the paper. It's just a beautiful technique. So I have them back here, but as you see over on this side, the maple leaves are bursting out. And so these are these boats coming into the harbor of Statue of Liberty. I was on the schooner in the middle of a horrible rainstorm, had to go below. I mean, literally, it was a giant sailing ship in New York Harbor, and there was this little hole, and I kept looking out at it. And this was not taken with my fancy Nikon. It was just a point and shoot. And I started seeing these images of the Statue of Liberty, and there's one back there where there's water drops, and that is called Tears of Shame. And it is the Statue of Liberty in shadow. This one, I just thought, was perfect for these boats in many colors. But if you look inside, it's the Rainbow Coalition colors. And that's what's here on a double rainbow that I was able to capture
All these images are printed on handmade paper, and these prints are called pigment prints. They're archival inks that have a shelf life of over 200 years, far longer than photographic paper. So I really think, and if you look, you'll see little elements in each one. This here, this is a black coral, which symbolizes strength. It was on the beaches of Miami after that horrible hurricane they had. These hurricanes in Miami, I mean, the water is literally coming in restaurants now. These different feathers symbolize different things, but the one that you'll find in a lot of my little boats here are the duck feather, which means community. The guinea feather means everything is not black and white, if you look at their feather. So these boats symbolize the journeys. All of us are on a journey. We kind of feel like we're all in the same boat here with COVID, but I think that all of us have a different story and a different experience that we have. And sharing those stories, I think, is part of our healing process to getting our world back to normal. So here we are with our installation for Char Norman's work. Again, another great woman, paper maker, a fiber artist, and she has taken what is considered a 2D crocheting and made things that are three-dimensional. And she's a teacher. She's from Columbus, Ohio. We've been in several shows together, and she's come and worked in my studio. The pieces behind here, I helped her print. These are pigment print on handmade paper that we made. And then we made these bigger sheets that we embedded, and she sewed them together. So it's very, very beautiful pieces. She of weaving in her pieces, but the paper pieces have an elegance, like the rock forms here. These two pieces are really her pieces addressing climate change. They're about the ash. There's a bug that was brought in and decimated the forest up in Ohio. And if you look, there are just numerous little pieces of the paper representing that interior, that loss that the tree has had because of these critters. The rock books are wonderful to look at, where she did castings of rocks in paper, and then there's a beautiful accordion of printing that she did and sewing. I mean, the detail. I was talking to Becky, the director here at the Floyd Center for the Arts, and I was telling her there is a certain maturity about all the work here because there's years of this workshop, learning this, borrowing this, working. We've all worked together. We've all exchanged. I mean, we all want to try what each other's doing, but our individual applications are all very different. And that's what's really, really fun and exciting. Another little treat, when you look at these images, she took these objects, because these were, she taught for many years in Florence. These were put in these little niches. If you walk around Rome, Florence, the walls in Cortones, you'll see these niches. People put little objects, and she put her objects in there, and would come back like a year later and see if they were still there and how they, how they weathered. And these photographs are just stunning representation. Speaking of Italy, many of us have worked in Italy, and you can tell, I think, by the tonality. You go to Italy and you're looking at a rock wall, and it's, thousands of years old. And I think there's a feel of that here, where the colors are all so rooted together, and I think it gives a certain tone to the entire show. I really welcome you to come. We do have masks, But it's a really fun show to come and view. So I hope you find the time to come. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Kate Scally, Director of Programming at the Floyd Center for the Arts. I hope you enjoyed learning more about paper and enduring medium. Gibby Waitzkin is our 2021 Distinguished Artist of the Year. And as part of her year with us here at the center, Gibby will be offering a number of demonstrations and workshops in paper making at the center. The first will take place on May 1st. It's an outdoor paper making demonstration, and you can check our website for the most up-to-date information regarding that if you'd like to attend. Gibby will also be installing a piece of artwork in the galleries this year that will incorporate elements of community participation, so we're really excited for that. And right now, on the first floor of the center, you will find more artwork by Gibby Waitzkin, and for that installation, Gibby has brought in some of the materials that she works with, and there's a chart with a beautiful rainbow where you can see the colors that she derives from plant materials. The materials that Gibby uses in her work are a work of art herself. If you just read the material list, there's lily and banana and cotton and flax, and many of these materials Gibby grows here in Floyd County, so I think that gives her work such a beautiful sense of place, and it's really grounded here in Floyd, and I think that's really fitting and perfect for our Artist of the Year. So I hope you will take advantage of some of the wonderful programs and exhibitions that we have with Gibby Waitzkin this year at the center, and thank you for watching.